In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a land leveling design using Engineering Field Tools. The first thing you're going to need to do is open up Engineering Field Tools. This can be found by going to the Windows key, going to All Programs, Engineering Applications, and this EFT application. The first few times that you open EFT, it's going to be a little slow, and it's going to need to load a lot of updates, so give it some time. If you want, after you watch this video, go ahead and go find the application and open it. It may even take a few hours to run some of its updates. Once it's run all of the updates, you shouldn't have any additional problems opening up the application. So when you open up EFT, it's going to look something like this. Now everybody's is going to look a little bit different just because of personalized settings. And this is something that you'll develop over time. You'll get to know where you like to have different things. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Survey Design tool. You can find this by going to File, and you'll see this new Survey Design. Now EFT also has a Terrace Design tool, a Waterway Design tool, and Hydraulics Formulas. This Hydraulics Formulas is really similar to the Hydraulics Formulas application that we're already used to using, except it has a few new hydraulic formulas and really nice printouts. But for this video, we're going to focus on the Survey Design tool. So I'm going to go to New Survey Design and click. Now if you do have toolkit access, likely any folders that you have checked out, customer folders that you have checked out in toolkit, they're going to automatically show up. For me, I don't have toolkit, and so I create an EFT customer file for each one of the producers that I'm working for. So personal preference on how you name these, I use the last name of the producer. So for this, I'm going to put the last name and hit next. Then you're going to do a project name. So again, this is personal preference on how you think and how you like to organize your files. I like to organize mine by fiscal year. So this project name is going to be FY18 Equip. If you're doing a livestock pipeline or something that's not Equip, it might be FY18 CSP, or it might be FY18 CTA. Again, this is personal preference. It's the way I organize my files does not have to be the same way that you organize your files. Since this is a training, I'm just going to name this FY18 and hit next. So then I'm going to have a actual survey design name. So the design name might be land leveling design, you might have a pit pond design, whatever design you're working on. So for this is going to be a land leveling training. That's what I'm going to name my design. Once I do that, I'm going to hit finish. Alright, so once your survey design has been created, this is the next screen you're going to come to. So for here, I'm just going to update the name. It pulls this from the file names, but I usually have the producer's name here. If designed by and drawn by are not automatically filled with your name, you'll need to put your name in there. Under practice, this is going to be irrigation, land leveling, and the location is in Taos, Mexico. You can also put in a project description, and you can give the elevation and description of where your benchmark are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import my survey. So I'm going to go down to this design elements where it says surveys, and I'm going to click on new. I'm going to name this my land leveling survey from 5/9/18. So then the type of survey you're going to bring in is going to be in this drop down here. This was a Trimble survey, and so I'm going to use XYZ. Now depending on your survey equipment, you may need to select radial or station offset. That all depends on the type of survey you're importing. Once you've selected that, you hit OK. So then this is where your points are going to come in. You have two options for bringing in points. You can manually add each point, which this is really useful if you've done the survey with, say, a laser level or a dumpy level. Or if you have an electronic survey, you can just go to Import Data. So since I'm importing an electronic survey, I'm going to select Import Data. I'm going to go up here to Browse, and I'm going to go find my CSV file, which has my survey points in it. Once I do that, I'm going to hit Open. Now just remember too, this area here is just a file preview. These are not all of your points. So don't panic if you only see 10 or so points listed on here. This is not the entire file. So once you get to this point, make sure to hit Next, not Finish. Hit Next, and then you're going to choose the format. So for the Trimble electronic survey, your data points come in as PNEZD, which is your point name, northing, easting, elevation, and description. Now, depending on the type of survey equipment that you're using, this may be different. So always make sure you're going to this screen and selecting the proper format for your survey. Also, I surveyed in feet, so I do not need to do a unit conversion. But if you needed to, you can do that here. So once I'm done here, I'm going to hit Finish. So it's going to try to find points that are duplicates. Again, this happens like these were closing on the benchmarks. So this point was closing on our TBM2. This point was closing on our TBM1. Anytime it finds a duplicate, it's going to come up with this warning. So if you want them to be part of your tin surface, you can recheck these. And if you don't, you can just leave it as is and hit OK. So now it brought in all of my survey points right here. And it's got, point number, northing, easting, elevation, and the description is over here. And these two fields in the middle are visible and tinnable. Visible means I can actually see the point in Engineering Field Tools. Tinnable is whether or not it's going to use that point to create a surface. So for a land leveling design, the only shots I want in my actual surface are the field shots. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off all of the points that I don't want as part of my surface. The easiest way that I do this is through the description, because my field shots are all marked as FS. So if I click on description, it's going to rearrange everything in alphabetical order based on the description. It makes it really easy to find the field shots. So I'm going to turn off all of these points. So I don't even need to see them for my land leveling design. So I'm simply going to uncheck visible, which also unchecks tinnable. If I wanted to see it, but I didn't want it as my surface, I could just uncheck tinnable, and I could still see it. But for all of these, I don't even want to see them. So I'm just going to go down this list and uncheck these. Alright, so once I've done this, now it should just be the field shots that are all checked. I'm going to hit Accept Edit. So now for this map, this top left is the full extent, and that will show me all of the points that I just brought in. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click full extent, and there's my survey. So it just brought in my entire survey. Now, with the land leveling tool, you only have the option to set the slope in the X direction and the slope in the Y direction. Now, if you notice, this field is not directly in the X or Y direction. And they're wanting to irrigate from this side of the field to this side of the field. So figuring out that direction using only X and Y direction, it's really difficult. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this whole survey and we're going to swing it. We're going to rotate it. So I'm going to go over here to survey and I'm going to select that survey and I'm going to reopen it. Now down here under point translation, I'm going to hit edit. And I'm going to select this drop down and I'm going to translate and rotate using point coordinates. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my translate reference point, and that's going to be the base point that I want to swing around. In this case, I'm going to choose this top corner. This is the one I never want this point to move, and all the rest of these points are going to rotate around this point. So this is point 202, and that's just the point number. So once I type in 202, this little eyeglass is going to show up. If I click that, it automatically pulls the X, Y, and Z for this point. So now, if I'm just rotating these, I don't need to do any of this. I come down here to rotate values, and I'm going to set an angle that I want to rotate. So if it's positive, you're going to be rotating your points in the clockwise direction. If it's negative, you're going to be rotating your points in the counterclockwise direction. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to try negative 20 degrees. And I'm going to hit apply. And you'll see it rotated my points. And don't worry about the surface yet. That'll fix itself after we've actually accepted where the new points are at. So if you notice, it's still tilted. I want them directly down. I want this left-hand side directly down from this top point. So now I'm going to try negative 25 degrees. And I'm going to hit apply. Now we're getting a little closer, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm going to do negative 28 degrees. Apply. Now that looks pretty darn close. So once I'm happy with where my points rotated, I'm going to hit accept edits. Now it'll say tenable point outside a border. This is going to pop up every time. Just ignore it, hit OK. And it's automatically going to rotate your tenable surface, your tinned surface, to those new points. So now I have my field directly in the north-south, east-west direction, which makes it much easier when you're trying to do your land leveling design. So now, to do my land leveling design, it's going to be under Design Elements and Structures. So I'm going to click on New. So I'm going to name this Land Leveling. You can name it whatever you need to. If you've got multiple fields, it could be Land Leveling North, Land Leveling South, whatever name that you need. So then I'm going to drop this list down and I'm going to choose Land Leveling. And you'll notice we can also use this software to do pits, pads, diked pits, round pits, or of course land leveling. So for this video we're going to focus on land leveling. So I'm going to select land leveling and hit OK. So now it's going to bring up this design area. Now for this field, all of the points are within the border that I want of my field. So I can click on this whole field button and it's going to select all of the points to be part of my design. Now if I didn't want the entire field, I could select pick, come up here to this magnet and select snap to point, and then I could go create my border. I could select all these points around my border just like we do in AgStar. And once you hit the last point, you double click to end. So, but for this one, I'm just going to select whole field. Once I've selected my field boundary, I'm going to hit centroid, and it's going to find the centroid of my field. So now under percent slopes, I always select best fit first. And this is because if you do that, then in your land leveling design report, it will show the best fit along with your actual designed slope. So I'm going to hit best fit just so it'll show up in my report. And I'm going to set my cut fill ratio to 1.25. and hit design. So what this is telling me right now is that the slope currently has a 1.7% slope in the x direction and a 0.28% slope in the y direction. So that is this resultant slope. Let me turn that off. This resultant slope right here in the middle. That is the way that the field is currently sloped. I always like to do this too because sometimes the best fit might fall within the parameters of that soil type. In this case, it doesn't. A 1.7% slope is too slope for this type of soil. So what I'm going to do is in the y direction, they're irrigating from this right side of the field to the left side of the field. So I want 0 slope in the y direction. I don't want any slope up and down this field. I want it all from right to left. So let's say I'm going to do a 0.5. I want a 0.5% slope from the right side to the left side. Now if you wanted a field to irrigate from this left side to the right side, I would put negative 0.5. But for this, going from right to left, it's going to be 0.5. My cut fill ratio is going to be 1.25, and then I'll hit design. So now I know, and this is also going to update. So now I know if they want to do a 0.5% slope in this irrigation direction with a 1.25 cut fill ratio, it will be 648.6 cubic yards per acre. Now I can keep playing with this number. I can, depending on the soil type, I'll know what my maximum and minimum slopes are, or not minimum, I'll know what my maximum slopes are. And I can just keep playing with this number. But let's just say we're going to go with a 0.4. 693.9 cubic yards per acre is an approximate. So once I'm happy with the slope and the our cut rate and everything like that, I'm really happy with the results I'm getting here. This is what I want. I'm going to hit accept edits. And that just saved my land leveling design. So now I want to go print my land leveling design report. So I'm going to go up here to File and go to Print Reports. If I haven't saved, it'll have a pop-up asking me if I want to save, and make sure you hit yes, or else anything you haven't saved is not going to show up in your report. So hit OK. Alright, so there's a few things you can do: project point report, survey data report, and land leveling report. Survey data report is really good to include in the file. So this counts as your printout of your electronic survey. So I like to select the survey data report just to stick in the producers folder so that we have an official printed out copy of our electronic survey. And then the land leveling report is going to be similar to what we used to get from AgStar, which will list your cuts and fills. So I'm going to select the land leveling report. It's going to be the land leveling structure. If you had done multiple land leveling designs, you would see a list here and you'd be able to select them. Make sure when you select it, you hit next, not finish. So if you hit next, then you have the option of doing a stakeout report, a survey points report, and an ISOPAC report. The stakeout report is going to give you can set the interval. So on 100, it's going to interpolate a 100 by 100 grid on this field and give you a stakeout report. So if you were to actually go out there and stake out those points for exactly what cuts and fills would be at those points, that's going to be the stakeout report. The survey points report is going to list each of your individual survey points and the exact cut and fill at that survey point. So I'm going to select it just so you can see what it looks like. Then the ISOPAC report is a cut fill contour map. You can change this to portrait or landscape and your sheet size. Usually I would use sheet size B, which is 11 by 17, but there's a little bit of a bug right now where On the 11 by 17, it's cutting off the borders. So I've been keeping sheet size A. You can change your print scale. I just leave mine at auto. And you can also change your contour intervals. I like mine at 0.5. If you had a lot of cuts and fills, you might want to change this to 1 foot contour intervals. But for this example, we're just going to leave it at 0.5. And then I'm going to hit finish. And I'm going to hit, well, you can also check or uncheck this auto number pages. For this, I'm going to leave it on. And then I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so once it's done preparing the report, it's going to pop up with your report preview. Again, personal preferences on where a lot of these windows pop up. It may pop up in a different location for you than right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up to this options, and I'm going to tell it to trust the host. If I don't do that, then a lot of times it'll freeze, and it gets really finicky. So you'll notice it already populates these blocks up here for the project name, location, practice, designed by, checked by, all the things that are required for an engineering design submittal. So this is that survey data report I was telling you about, which is basically just a printed out copy of your electronic survey. And this is something I would just print and stick in the producer's file. So this next part, this is part of the land leveling report. So this is the land leveling design and volume report. I'm going to try to make this a little bigger for you. Alright, so the land leveling design and volume report is going to give you all of your design results. So this is where I was telling you the best fit results will show up, but only if you actually had selected best fit. This is good because it'll show you, kind of this resultant slope is the slope of the existing field. And this will help justify the type of slope you decided to go with in your design. So the design results is the actual design that you came up with. So in this case, we had 0.4% slope in the x direction, 0% slope in the y direction, which gave us a resultant negative 0.4% slope, which means it's going from right to left. It also gives us our azimuth, which is at 270 degrees, which shows that it's on this plane right here going from right to left. It'll give us the information about the field. So in this case, we have a 2.1 acre field. And this is where it shows your earthwork calculations. So it gives you total cut, total fill, the cut fill ratio for the design. If I had any borrow or waste I was using, and then our cut per acre, which in this case was 693.9 cubic yards per acre. And then this also gives us our max cut and max fill. So in this case, we have a max cut of 1.9 feet and max fill of 1.87 feet. You would want to compare this to your soil profile to make sure that you're not cutting into a layer that you can't cut through, or that you're not cutting too much. Also, if your cuts and fills are really high, you may want to have the producer take the first couple feet of topsoil, set them aside, and then bring them back at the end of the land leveling. That way their fertile topsoil stays on the top. So after this is the stakeout report I was telling you, and I had it set to every 100 feet. So this gives me an XY grid if I was to actually go out there and stake out the cuts and fills on a 100 by 100 grid. Then this is the survey data report I talked about earlier, which, like the first report, it gives all of my survey points, but this also, at each individual point, gives me the exact cut and fill. So if I wanted to go back and stake out each one of these points, I'd be able to know the exact cut and fill at each individual survey point. And this last map is the ISOPAC map, and which is a cut fill contour map. And this is basically what it looks like. Unfortunately, it does not give the irrigation direction on here, so I like having that on mine, so most time I'll print that out and I'll just draw in the arrow that goes from right here to right here that shows my irrigation direction is going to be from this side of the field to this side. And then it also automatically has a border on it with all the information in the checked and approved blocks as required for our engineering submittals. So you can print this out, and that is how you do a land leveling design in Engineering Field Tools, and how to get your land leveling design report. And we also covered how to rotate your points so that you make sure your field is facing north-south or east-west. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us.